So calisthenics and injuries, it is almost synonymous at this stage. And if you're watching this, I'm probably assuming that you already know this by now. Calisthenics can be very injury provoking, and it's frustrating because it's the most appealing and engaging way of training, but just getting injured, taking those setbacks, it's just super frustrating. And obviously I don't want you to go through that. I don't want me to go through that. I don't want my clients to go through that. So I wanted to make a video that summed up why people get injured in calisthenics, what the actual leading causes are, and how you can very simply prevent that from happening. And there's definitely a few things that you can do, at least minimize it as best as we can. There's so many variables involved in getting injured, and it all comes down to stress levels, sleep, recovery, diet as well. But from a training perspective, there's very, very simple things we can do to just reduce that from happening, and especially with these overuse injuries. So please watch the end of the video. I'm going to save you guys years. And I promise you, this is coming from someone who's been injured the last 6 months. I did stupid shit. I knew it was stupid. Please, injuries are going to kind of literally stop your journey and just kind of put it at a complete halt, and probably come to a point where you don't even train calisthenics and you just lose the love out of it. So don't get injured, follow along, and this is going to skyrocket journey. By the way, this is someone coming from an osteo background, so I'm not just some random calisthenics guy talking about injuries. I come from an exercise science background. I did 4 years of osteopathy, and I pulled out in my final year to pursue this stuff. So I do have a little bit of background in stuff. So firstly, I want to talk about why you are getting injured, and it really comes down to two things, right? So firstly, it is poor conditioning. And by poor conditioning is what I mean is that your body, your tendons, your joints, the muscles themselves potentially have not been able to handle the load that you've placed on that. So what it is, it's too quickly of a jump in volume, too quickly of a jump in intensity, too many changes of exercises that it couldn't handle, poor recovery as well. So there's a lot of things, and usually it's a combination of all of those things. So generally speaking, you've just increased something too quickly, changed something around too quickly, the body couldn't handle the load, and over time, whether that's very abruptly, you've torn something, or over time where the tendon hasn't been able to actually recover, you've created an overuse injury, or you've got an acute injury. And that's simply what all it comes down to. Secondly, something that also contributes to that is poor loading. So this is when it comes down to incorrect technique, and what that's going to do, if something is just, even if it's very subtle, like let's say if you're doing a pull-up and your shoulder's very subtly higher, when you're doing it for 1 rep, it's fine. Doing a set, it's fine. But if you're compounding that over weeks and months, over time, you're just putting slightly more load on one structure. And that's where it kind of leads to obviously poor loading. The body can't handle what's getting placed on it. Then you get those shoulder impingements, elbow tendinopathies. That's when those overuse injuries occur. So that's obviously very simplified. Poor conditioning, poor technique, usually probably a combination of everything that was mentioned there. So why can't the tissue handle the load? What's actually happening, and how can we actually combat that to prevent it from happening? So very firstly, your tendons and even your joints as well, the structure around your joints and the tissue around your joints don't respond as quickly as your muscles. So your muscles adapt to the load placed on it, and they actually get stronger faster. Your tendons are always slightly playing catch up. And that's why you need to make sure that you're going through phases where you're actually strengthening your muscles to make them more durable. And you're not just kind of getting as much output as you possibly can. And this is what we do when we call periodizing. It's a very fancy word, but all you're going to be doing is spending time building conditioning. And then you will spend time building strength. So what I mean by that is conditioning, you're going to be spending more time doing slightly higher reps, slightly less intensity, maybe more volume. So you're going to be spending time doing slightly more sets, slightly higher rep ranges, much better form and technique, learning the engagement correctly, but you're doing less intensity. And this is going to make muscles obviously strong and durable too, but especially your tendons and joints. And doing these conditioning exercises is so important. Think of your foundation exercises. Think of slightly easier variations of those skills like planche lean push-ups, doing tucked front lever holds for a slightly longer hold. Things that are just a little bit easier that you can do for a longer time is what's going to strengthen your muscles, your tendons, and make them so much more durable. So that's what we call conditioning. Spend time doing that. And once you've built up to a decent position, then you can do much more strength focus. So you can go on those, whatever you call those, do those tempo things that everyone talks about, where you just push the intensity, go as absolutely hard as you can. Sure, that is great to get the nervous system super strong, and you want to do that, but you have to have the conditioning. So your conditioning needs to build up to here, and then you can spend a little bit more time doing strength. Then you do conditioning again, and then strength again. So it kind of makes sense. And with those strength focus phases, this is where you're doing higher intensity, higher efforts, but slightly less rep ranges, slightly shorter holds, less sets as well, so less overall volume. So what we're doing here is we're being a lot fresher. We're not cooking ourselves so much, but we're just doing high impact attempts. cramps, and that's going to really put a lot of stress on our body, but it's going to help us adapt and get stronger and get our nervous system super strong. So that is how you structure it. So incredibly smart. So if you're going to take anything away from what I said, this is the most important thing. Sure, those strength phases are great, conditioning phases are great, but what you have to also make sure that you understand is progressive overload. And if you don't know what that means, all it is you are very slowly increasing the effort that you're doing. That's all it is. And the way that we can progressively overload specific to weight training is we go from 10 kilos one week, 11 kilos the next week, 12.5 kilos the next week, or go from 5 reps of 100 kilo bench press to 6 reps, 7 reps. Obviously in calisthenics, a little bit different. Sure, we can increase the reps. Sure, we can slowly increase the second holds. That's great. But we have to work through the progressions. So making sure that you know what the next progression is for you and how to very slowly increase the intensity, but also making sure that you've mastered the progression before you move to the next one. This is so incredibly important, and it's so easy to just so quickly overdo it and rush this stuff. So respect the skill, respect the progressions for what they are, master it before you move to the next one, and very slowly increase the reps, increase the hold times, and make sure you've mastered that form, as I've said. There's one more thing that is going to help combat those injuries as well. And this is actually something that's a little bit more complex and to be specific to what you're doing at the moment. But this is obviously accessory exercises. And accessory exercises are going to be specific to the skill that you're trying to train and what you may be kind of experiencing. For instance, when you're doing handstand push-ups, you might be flaring at the elbows a little bit and have a tendency to do that. So you might be doing some external rotation work in an overhand position to strengthen your rotator cuff. Or with training your scap protractors, so you're doing a much more planche lean push-ups to isolate your serratus anterior, so your deeper scapular protractor muscle. I'm going on a tangent here, but accessory exercises that are going to be specific to the skill you're trying to build and the tissue that you're trying to strengthen is so incredibly important, and especially a part of prehab. So what you do before injury to stop you from getting injured, but also in rehab. So when you actually are injured, to strengthen the tissue that's actually injured or the tissue around the structure that's injured. So there's a lot there, and obviously, like, I'm not going to be doing a lesson on bloody PhD of rehabilitation or whatever, but I think you get the gist of it. And I think there's very things that you can kind of start to implement into your training right now to stop you from getting injured. And if you want just to save yourself the hassle and actually optimize everything to build strength at the right rate, reduce your injury risk, you can click the link in my description. Obviously, have coaching where we structure everything for you, give you feedback, and guide you through the whole journey. And it doesn't have to be for a long time too. We can do it for a few months to kind of show you the insight, show you how to do it, and then you can go off on your own and give you the thumbs up, and you can actually skyrocket your journey. Otherwise, like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, keep looking good and doing crazy shit. I'll see you guys in the next one.